Hey guys, Tony here, and back to answer Grecian Thunder's thread. Three cool questions. I mean, I don't know. I might have trouble with number two, but I figured I'd give it a shot. And yeah, I've seen some great responses so far, so I figured why not. So name three records of inspiration, and in this case, I think I'm gonna kind of make it three artists of inspiration. Um, to be able to pick one album and say this was the reason for this, it's just going to be too difficult. So the first one I'm going to pick, and the I would say just the artist here. And I picked this album for I guess for a specific reason, but it could be anything by this artist or this group. But I picked The Doors. This is American Prayer. This is Jim Morrison's poetry, backed with music by The Doors. Really cool album if you're into The Doors. Um, and the reason why I picked this, and I guess it could be anything by The Doors, but this was the band that really caught my ear first when I was a kid. I mean, um, I'd been exposed to music before, but I wasn't really into music. I'm talking like 11, 12 years old, you know? I remember a friend of mine had The Doors' greatest hits and put it on, and that was it. It was like something happened, and I also saw the movie The Doors, and that was a big contributor to me being just fascinated. Um, After that, I did my best to get every one of their albums. I've read tons of books when I was a kid on Morrison and The Doors, and so they were the kind of the catalyst for my just fascination with music. My more than just a casual liking of music and more of an intense love of music. I mean, music is like everything to me. It's an important thing, and I mean, some people are into cars, and some people are into sports, and some people are into money. You know, my thing has always been music, and I'm the music guy in the office. You know, the rock and roll guy, basically. And the Doors were the first thing for that. But I think what more than yes, they inspired me with music and digging into music and just being a music freak. But more than that, I think with Jim Morrison specifically, with his career and what he did. I mean, first off with Morrison, I'd say more than a musician. Obviously, he's known as a musician. He wrote songs, but he also wrote a lot of poetry. Now, as a kid, reading his poetry and hearing it on this album and reading his lyrics had just a profound effect on me. Um, his poetry it isn't probably the most technical poetry. I mean, it was almost like he wrote for the imagery and he wrote for the feeling, basically, which to me is usually the best poetry. I read it today after just reading a lot more poetry and being exposed to a lot more literature, and it seems adolescent. But that's like what I'm talking about in a way. I was a kid, and it really spoke to me, and it was just an important thing for me. And after that, see, I've always wanted to write. Okay, so it's a difficult thing for me. It always has been my desire to write, and it's more like anything I do. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, but like everything I do, I don't think it's good enough in that aspect of my writing. So that feeling has kind of hindered my writing. So I don't always write. Um, I'll get into that a little bit more later. But with Morrison, this probably makes no sense. I know I'm rambling, but it made it almost okay to like poetry and to want to write and to um, be interested in writing and reading as a kid. You know what I mean? Like, other than being a bookworm and at school you get made fun of. I mean, to me, Morrison was a bookworm, but it made it cool, and the his imagery and his poetry was just really powerful to me, and it spoke to me. Um, do I put on the Doors a lot now? Not really. When I do, I still enjoy it, um, but I don't feel the desire to really put them on much. So I have to say, in a nutshell, the Doors really um, opened my eyes to a lot of different possibilities. I mean, it isn't even just music. It isn't even just writing. I mean, lifestyle in general. I mean, as a kid, I made a lot of decisions that maybe wouldn't be considered wise, and I don't regret it now, but it was probably listening to the Doors that I decided that I was going to do certain things, and and eventually went on to do them. But just a lot, a lot of different things, a different way of looking at things, and while Morrison's whole philosophy on everything on life is poisonous. Um, I wouldn't say his whole philosophy, but he basically led a poisonous life. Um, it's still something that spoke to me and still speaks to me in a way. So I don't know if that made any sense. So it's tough. I can't really go into details on everything here, but maybe after I go through these, it'll be a little bit more clear. The second artist has to be Kurt Cobain, Nirvana. I have to say, it was through Nirvana that I discovered uh, a whole lot of other bands. I mean, really, I'll admit, I really discovered punk rock through Nirvana. Punk rock was always being a fan of the Doors and then the Beatles and like that popular '60s music. I always kind of was like punk rock guy. I pictured the Sex Pistols and the spiky mohawks, and it just wasn't something that appealed to me then. Then I got into Nirvana really, and Kurt just kind of, his big mission too was to turn people on to these bands that weren't really popular. He did it through making his own T-shirts and talking about bands and playing covers and things like that. Um, so through Nirvana, I really kind of I discovered punk rock basically. Um, Maybe some people wouldn't think that Nirvana is the greatest place to discover punk rock, but what can I say? That's what happened with me. But more than that too. I mean, I've led a funky kind of life, and with Kurt Cobain, I mean, he dealt with a lot of issues and depression, and like I've dealt with depression my whole life. I mean, I could go into all of the details and my childhood and all that, but you know, to me, this album specifically, but Nirvana in general, got me through a lot of tough times. To me, Nirvana was it made it okay to be depressed. You know what I mean? It made it okay to you're not happy all the time. People who think they're gonna be happy all the time, they're wrong, and they're gonna be miserable because they're searching for a happiness that's not really gonna be there. You're not gonna be happy all the time. In general, can you be content? Probably, but I think people, maybe Americans in general, need to kind of realize that you're not going to be happy all the time, and sadness and depression, things like that, are just part of life. If you're depressed all the time and for no reason you can really speak of, then you're clinically depressed, and maybe you should deal with that however you can. But I mean, I found I was, especially younger, when I was younger, I found that I was depressed for reasons I couldn't think of, and it was through this music, and some would call it depressing music, that I felt better in a way. Like, you can align yourself with something, and it just kind of made it okay. So I guess Nirvana really just, you know, it inspired me to dig a little deeper into music, and just, I don't know what to say, how it inspired me, but I think you get my drift here. I mean, in general. Alright, and the third, God, I don't even know if I'm going to post this thing. Neil Young, of course. Neil Young is a huge inspiration for me. Has been since I discovered him at 16, 15, and to this day is just a huge inspiration for me, artistically, like creatively. The guy is the real deal. I mean, he is. if you look at his career, if you read about his life, you may not like all of his music, but you gotta say the guy has balls. And to be in his position and do the things that he does, it takes balls. He's reached an age where people go to his shows and want to hear Heart of Gold. They want to hear Southern Man. They want to hear Old Man, Down by the River, Rockin' in the Free World. And it's just like, he doesn't want to do that all the time. He writes new songs. He still does. And he writes good songs. So I have to say, like, alright, so Neil does what he wants for his muse, for the song. He does what he has to do to be creative, to be in a spot to be able to make music. He's ditched people, he's changed bands, he's done just crazy things for music. And as somebody that's, just has an eye on being creative at all, that's just inspiring as hell. And I have to say, for some reason, when I saw this tour, the Twisted Road, especially the first time, I walked out of there and was just like blown away. That was like the 16th time I'd seen the guy, and it was just an emotional thing, and it really made me start thinking more and more about, my own creativity and things like that. And as I said, like, I like to write, and I've always had a weird thing about it. I don't let people read what I write, and I just don't think it's ever good enough. And I think I've gotten to accept the fact that I'm always going to feel that way. And if I ever want to get anywhere with it, I have to show people. I have to open up a little bit about it. If it's what I want to do, and it's a weird thing, and I'm sure some of you may understand, but it's a thing that has bothered me so much that I've gone through periods where I wouldn't write and just like forget it and things like that. I have let people read things, and I've gotten a lot of compliments. People say I definitely should write, things like that. But it's always been a weird ass thing for me, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But after seeing this show and this album and seeing where he's at and how he just does not give a shit, it just inspired me. So there you go. Anyway, 3 records of disappointment. I can't really name 3 records of disappointment because there hasn't been a whole lot that I've bought lately that I would consider a disappointment. There are a lot of bands that I find disappointing now in their output and think they should just hang it up. Stone Temple Pilots, just forget it. I saw them recently. Well, like actually last year, and it was just like a greatest hits show. It was like they were really... Scott Weiland was actually on Howard Stern the other day, and he talked about it. Like, some nights he feels like he's punching the clock, and that's exactly what this show felt like. It was greatest hits, and it was just like, that's it. And there was nothing special about it, and, in their latest album, while I hadn't spent a whole lot of time with it, what I heard I didn't like, and I didn't explore further. Bands like even Aerosmith, it's like, come on, time to hang it up. Tour all you want, but maybe you should not record things that, it's just crap. So, I don't know. I can't imagine Aerosmith looking at, what is that last one, Just Push Play or something, and thinking that this is a really viable, good... Fine, it had a couple hits, but, it doesn't mean anything. There's a lot of different things. I'm just disappointed with the state of mainstream rock and roll. I'm disappointed that rock and roll is not in the mainstream anymore. It's just not. Fine, you have a few select bands that might break through a little bit, but in general, with the exception of people like you and me on YouTube, people don't care about rock and roll. I mean, it's a small number, and rock records especially don't sell, and it's just a disappointment. So, and rock radio is like a joke. Don't even get me started on that. What am I currently grooving to? Okay. First off, I wanted to show these, because of all the records I've been buying and showing on here, I've been listening to these more than anything else. They're just fantastic. Soul Jazz Records, German electronic music compilation, experimental German rock and electronic music from 1972 to 1983. This set is just fantastic. This is music that I've been on a huge krautrock kick, as you guys know, and I have to say this is just exactly what I've been looking for in this music. If you were to have asked me about krautrock 3 years ago, I would have laughed and been like, "No way! I mean, German music." But I have to say, if you're interested, curious at all about this genre, start here. Go to Soul Jazz Records. Get these compilations. Get the CDs. You get the records. You can download the MP3s right then and there. Get them, because this is just fantastic music. And this is like a who's who of the genre. I mean, you have Can, Harmonia, Popol Vuh, Faust, Noi, Cluster, Amandul, Ashrah Temple, Tangerine Dream. Just great, great, great compilations. 4 LPs. Highly recommend this. And I've been listening to these a lot. These are probably going to get worn out. What else? Alright, Superchunk. This is a band that I can't believe I've just gotten into. This is No Pocky for Kitty. Great album. I also have On the Mouth, which I showed recently. Equally great. I think I'm just a little bit more partial to this one still, but great album. Just a great rock, indie rock band from the 90s. I don't know a whole lot about them, but I definitely like them, and I'm going to check out more. So, there you go. And of course, the Fleet Foxes. This one and their first album, I mean, this is their newest one, of course. Everybody's showing this. Helplessness Blues. And their debut. I've been listening to both of these a lot. And I have to say, I mean, I think I do like their debut a bit more, and their Sunshine EP. But their newest one is also killer. I think what I like most about this band and this music is that sound. It's like, early 70s California harmonies, like rock, like very strongly reminds me of Crosby, Stills and Nash. Robin Pecknold just sounds just like Graham Nash to me. It's almost impeccable. It's uncanny how much he sounds like Graham Nash, and yeah, excellent stuff. I think I'm just glad that this music is being made today and that people really like it. Fantastic. Highly recommend these albums. And finally, I've been listening to a lot of stuff. Obviously, I've been getting a lot of new records, but just some stuff that stood out to me. Kurt Weill's newest record, Smoke Ring for My Halo, just an awesome record. The more I listen to this, the more I like it. Really, really well done. Highly recommend this. I think I like this more than